Why? Why are you here? Well, I came to take your head. You've been a bad boy, Drawwood. All this fighting left your headquarters wide open. Gah. As Drawwood glared up at him with malice, he noticed the sword lying beside Wayne's feet. His wounds burned, scorching hot against his skin. The taste of iron filled his mouth. He just needed to grab the sword. If he could buy time, someone would realize there's a problem at the headquarters. No one's coming, Wayne said. Bullseye. Drawwood's shoulders trembled. My soldiers are stationed all around this tent, and every last one of yours is busy on the mountain. Short of a fire breaking out, they won't give this place a second thought. You talk like you know everything. I do know everything. It's how I got this far. What? Wayne shrugged his shoulders indifferently at the dying Drawwood, who was desperately refusing to back down. I wanted to see if we could keep the Martin army at bay by getting them caught up in the frenzied fighting on the battlefield. That was my basic plan. It's funny, isn't it? It's a lot harder to exhibit restraint when you're at an advantage. Your army, from soldiers on the outskirts to you guys here at the center, we're restless today. We've been up there watching you scramble around for 3 weeks, you know. Finding a way to slip in was way too easy. Drawwood opened his mouth to object, but his current situation was proof enough. He was mortified, but he tried his best to dig through his mind for clues to how this could have happened, and came to a sudden realization. Wait. I knew a small army of yours was coming down the mountain. I even received reports of who was in command. Impossible. After all, we never came down the mountain. Drawwood's eyes swam. How the hell did they get here if they didn't come down the mountain? You remember the tunnel in the cave, right? His consciousness was fading away. No way. They said clearing the debris from the cave-in would take months. Next to that, Wayne smiled merrily, the miners dug us a tunnel right next to it beforehand, one leading right from the mine to the cave. His entire body shook. Impossible. The purpose of the cave-in wasn't to get rid of Martin's soldiers. It was to make you forget about the cave altogether. Everything Drawwood had mounted and piled together, all his awards and achievements as a proud military man, came crashing down upon him. Whether he liked it or not, Drawwood knew this boy outmatched him as a leader in every way. Then all we had to do was open up a new tunnel, put on your armor, and go outside. No one would ever guess we were Natra men. We just happened to run into Logan on the way here. So you're saying we were wrapped around your finger this entire time? Drawwood coughed out. Look, the sword, by his foot. You can still move. Accept it. You failed as a leader, but you can still have his head. Cough. Drawwood laughed as he continued to gush blood. Laughed and laughed and laughed. Then, collecting the last of his strength, he dived with all his might for the sword by Wayne's foot. Well, this wasn't really part of the official plan, but Wayne plunged his sword through the general's torso. As it writhed on the ground, I swore I'd cut down any who insult my heart. A single gleam, and his body split in two, slumping onto the floor. Later, Drawwood, Wayne wiped the blood off his blade and sheathed it in the scabbard. Beside him, Rackham had removed his helmet to bow reverently. That was marvelous, Your Highness. You call this marvelous? Oh, come on. Why are you crying, Rackham? My apologies. I was so moved by your swordmanship. Okay. We better get moving. I might have said otherwise, but their troops at the back of the mine might send people over once they realize Logan's gone. We'll continue to set their base ablaze according to your plan, correct? Right. Focus mainly on food and supplies. We've got to make it clear something's wrong and throw them in a panic so the rest of our men can crush them. Let's go. They hopped back on their horses and lowered their torches to engulf the camp in flames. It spread in an instant, and the corpses of Drawwood and his men were swallowed up in the dancing fire. The ash quickly rose into the sky, sending a message to the soldiers fighting on the upper levels of the mine. Hey, look over there. Is that fire coming from the headquarters? Wait, is this another enemy attack by the enemy? No Martin soldier had forgotten the fire from the nighttime raid. They carried the trauma of those flames, and for this reason, their composures began to crumble as chaos spread among them. When the messengers reported the deaths of Drawwood and the other commanders, their hesitation grew fatal. There were those who resisted, those who tried to withdraw, and those who were simply dumbfounded. Without any guidance, the Marden soldiers had lost the power to fight. As the number of casualties grew, the Marden forces practically tumbled down to the foot of the mountain in retreat. The sun was beginning to set as Wayne and the others made it back up to the summit. They were greeted with praises and cheers from the soldiers whose blood was still boiling from the heat of battle. "Oh, His Highness has returned. Your Highness, I'm glad to see you in good health." The strategy worked like a charm. Most of the soldiers were injured. The death toll wasn't that small either, but their faces were lively and energetic as they celebrated Wayne's safe return and extolled his praises. "You did extraordinarily well, every last one of you. There is no doubt today that we delivered a heavy blow against the Marden. Victory is close at hand. Think of this as our final hurrah and stay focused." "Yeah!" The soldiers' war cry shook the earth. Wayne moved forward to walk among them and share a quick word or two with each one. The old General Hagal was waiting for him in the distance. "Hagal, thanks for holding down the fort while I was gone." "No such thanks are needed," he bowed reverently. "I'd like to hear an update on the current situation. What's going on with Marden?" "Of course, they've given up on sieging the mine. I believe they're now strengthening their defenses on more level ground some distance away from their current location. I'm guessing there's no possibility of another attack. Probably because they're fighting over who will succeed as leader and whether to continue the war. Do you believe they will, Your Highness?" "Not a chance," he said with conviction. "We've proved to Marden that they were overexcited for a war that turned into a huge failure. That must have killed any remaining morale. Not to mention most of them were burned to a crisp. I bet the commanders will put all the blame on the late Drawwood and decide to withdraw. Well, if anyone takes command here and fails, they'll have to take on the responsibility for losing this war." "That makes sense," Hagal agreed with a nod. "Then comes a meeting to reach an agreement and reconcile. That's my real battle. Wayne couldn't fail this time. He'd palm off this dud of a mine back to Marden using every last trick he had. I need to start laying the groundwork. I'll have Nanim help out too." With that in mind, Wayne came to a sudden realization. "By the way, where is Nanim?" "Lady Nanim is going around to each group checking on their injuries and casualties. She should return shortly." "I see. Well, let's have a little pre-victory drink until she gets back." Just as he was about to ask Hagal to join him, an uproar came from the edge of the mine. They looked at each other and immediately ran toward the source. "What's wrong? What happened?" Your Highness, well, please look over there." The soldier on guard pointed at the plains the Marden were occupying. Wayne looked over and could hardly believe his eyes. The Marden army was marching further and further away. Does this mean they're withdrawing? With their backs to Nactra as they slouched toward the border, the army was clearly withdrawing. There was no other explanation. But Wayne had his reservations. Sure, it'd be great if they pulled out completely, but it was happening way too soon. Anyone with the power and rank to make this decision should have already joined Drawwood in the afterworld. "Hagal, do you think they're trying to fake us out?" "No, from the looks of it, it seems like they are retreating. In their current state, the soldiers wouldn't be willing to pull such a petty trick." Wayne groaned inside. It's not that he wasn't happy about Marden retreating so quickly. The sooner they left, the sooner they could start negotiating, but he still couldn't help but think something else was going on. Your Highness, pardon me, but..." A timid soldier next to them suddenly spoke up. Could it be this really means we won?" Wayne noticed the thousands of soldiers around him shifting their gaze from him to the retreating army, back and forth. What should he tell them? Wayne considered for a moment. "Everyone, listen up. The Marden have turned their backs on us and are running home." Even the furthest soldiers turned their ears to listen to his announcement. "However, it very well may be the start of a despicable plan against us. All the same, if they're using an underhanded tactic, they have all..." All the same, if they're using an underhanded tactic, they have all but admitted they're no match for us, he thundered. Therefore, I shall make a declaration right here. We, Natra, have won this war. The area around the gold mine was hushed. There wasn't a single peep. Then, the next moment, cheers erupted from the soldiers with the same force as a bomb explosion. Let me hear your triumphant cries. Let the Marden know we are the victors, Wayne encouraged. They gave a resounding hoot that flooded the surrounding area and was loud enough to shake bones. Is this all right? Hagal whispered into his ear. Wayne nodded. There's no doubt they're up to something, and we'll be ready to strike back soon enough. We're preparing by boosting morale. Don't drop your guard, Hagal. As you wish, he bowed respectfully. Weaving her way through the hooting crowd, Nanim appeared before the two. So this is where you were, Your Highness? Oh, Nanim. What's wrong? Wayne could sense something was off. I heard you'd been examining the injured. Is it worse than we thought? No, our soldiers actually suffered less than expected. She shook her head. It's something else, Your Highness. We just received word from one of our spies in the royal capital of Marden. Oh, what? Did Fishtar get so mad he went on a vassal killing spree? They've surrendered, she reported. It took Wayne several seconds to process this information. Surrendered? Yes. Marden? Yes. To whom and how? To the neighboring country of Cavallinu. They were unable to hold out against a large-scale assault since the majority of their troops were fighting here and King Fishtar was killed, so. What the hell was Marden doing? How the hell could Fishtar be so friggin' dumb? Its various curses tore through the back of Wayne's mind. The more present half of his consciousness was able to arrive at a more important issue. Hey, Nanim, we were supposed to meet with Marden after this, right? To reach an agreement? Wayne somehow managed to speak with a bit of civility. What do you think will happen if we try now? Nanim couldn't meet his eyes and answered apprehensively, seeing them been destroyed. I imagine it'd fall through. Huh. So that's it. It'd just fall through. Wayne gave a sigh and looked up at the sky. Then he screamed, What the hell? His futile cries were swallowed up by the soldiers' happy chants and faded away. Epilogue. The kingdom of Natra was on the northernmost point of the continent, where summers were short. Just as the sun's rays grew strong and the vegetation verdant, fall and winter would come knocking on its door. Such was its weather. But it also meant that its townspeople knew how to enjoy summer to the fullest. Visitors to this land would often find people jovially going about their day. Festivals and laughter in the kingdom of Natra usually continued late into the night around this time of year. But unlike the merriment of the nearby castle town, Wayne was splayed across the desk in his office, wallowing in self-pity. How did this happen? It had been 1 month since the end of the war with Marden over the Gilat gold mine. Hagal had stayed behind to guard it, while Wayne returned home to deal with the massive pileup of government affairs, and continued to gather intel on Marden. The entire continent soon heard the news of Marden's fall to Cavallinu. It may have been a small northern country, but it was a country nonetheless. The collapse of a nation and the end of its history would interest anyone involved in politics, especially because Marden had a gold mine. It was common knowledge that Marden and Natra fought over it, but everyone wanted to know how this land would be dealt with in the end. The kingdom of Natra pretty much stole it from under their noses. The kingdom of Marden wouldn't stand for it and fought back. The kingdom of Cavallinu destroyed Marden in the meantime. Considering the series of events, the mine would normally be considered Natra's territory now, but the caveat was whether Cavallinu would allow that. And sure enough, this was the day Natra and Cavallinu had planned to meet and hopefully come to an agreement. Excuse me, the office door opened and Nanim walked in. The moment she saw Wayne laying across his desk, she gave a look that said, Oh. Your meeting with the messenger from Cavallinu didn't work out? Nope, he mournfully croaked, looking up at the ceiling theatrically. I couldn't get rid of the mine. Shit. His plan to sell the dried-up mine back to Marden for a high price woefully fell apart after Cavallinu destroyed them. But Wayne hadn't given up hope yet. Cavallinu desperately wanted the mine, or rather, they weren't above invasion to get what they wanted. Their plan had likely been to engage the battle-weary Marden once Natra had been defeated then take both the country and its gold mine in one go. Meaning Cavallino had been thrown a curveball too. They wanted the mine now, even if they had to take it by force. But they needed to think twice before dipping their toes in an unanticipated war. And so Wayne looked for any possible advantages and quickly sent messengers to Cavallino to set up a meeting so he could pawn the mine off on them. But this dream was not realized. Wasn't there talk about the Martin royal family escaping from Cavallino's hands? Yes, according to the information in our spy reports, we've heard the royal family is rallying the defeated troops that returned from the battle for the mine, lying low and forming a resistance movement against Cavallino. It seems like they're having a pretty hard time keeping their grip on Martin. A two-front war with us would spell bad news, so they did their best to push a non-aggression pact. They insisted we keep the mine in exchange, so I had no momentum. Oh dear. Cavallino was a Western nation, so Nanim wasn't present for their meeting, but she imagined Wayne's bitter expression, as if he'd ground his teeth in a mouthful of insects, and giggled. Hey, this is no laughing matter, Nanim. Read this report, the cost of all the people, material, and money for this war. Thanks to that, the national treasury is empty. There's nothing left, and our prize, some dried-up old mine. Ugh, come on. As Wayne held his head and writhed in agony, Nanim walked over and thrust a bunch of papers under his nose. Well then, here, a little present for you. What's this? Love letters from the ladies? I mean, I am a super cool guy for beating an army of 30,000, right? I would have torn those up and thrown those away. It's a report from Pellant. The miners who'd participated in the fight were rewarded medals of honor. Pellant, who had acted as mediator, now worked as a mine inspector for them. Okay, so it's a report. No big deal. Huh? Wayne quickly flipped through the report and his eyes stopped. More gold has been discovered. Wait, seriously? I personally went over there to investigate, and it's true. I wouldn't call it another gold rush, but it could mean we'll turn a profit. Oh, he sighed deeply, leaning against the back of his chair. I've been trying to plan a good time to tell my troops that the mine is a bust, but I guess there's still a shred of hope left. With your reputation now, I think you'll be fine even without the mine. The people adore you. You've proven in battle, and your political savviness is second to none. Many believe you'll be the wisest, most benevolent ruler to date. Nah, approval ratings are temporary. My failures will be what sticks forever. Carelessness is our greatest enemy, Nanim, he warned. She gave a wry smile and sighed at his obstinance. He could masterfully craft all the daring schemes he wanted on the battlefield, but he always returned to his normal self at the palace. Even so, his methods had helped solve a number of national crises, so she supposed there wasn't too much of an issue. But wow, who knew? Turns out we might be able to use the mine after all. I guess that gives me a little elbow room. I've been so busy since I got back, I might even take a few naps around here. No, she placed a pen in the mountain of papers in front of Wayne. After I finish this, then? Nope, there's more. Ambassadors of several nations have requested to meet with you. The civil officials would like to discuss the budget. There's also the pressing issue of supplying the military with new arms and equipment. Oh, and Her Highness, Princess Felania misses you. You've delayed inspecting a town for the war as well. The list goes on and on. A meticulously itemized, overbooked schedule, even though he'd overcome a national crisis. New challenges were already cropping up one after the other. Wayne gave a small sigh and yelled, "Let's just sell this country off and get the hell out of here." Wayne earnestly howled in agony, but alas, that too dissolved into nothing. The death of the Emperor of Earthworld set off a disturbing series of events across the continent. In time, the curtain would rise on an age known as the Great War of Kings. The end.